Welcome to Unquittable Church. And if this is your first time with us, man, we extend a special greeting to you. As we celebrate Easter this week, many of you might recall memories of like dressing up and attending church as a family. And for some, those memories just may not be so pleasant, and others might be still actively engaging in those traditions. No matter where you are in your spiritual journey, we're glad you're here. My name is John Collier, and I'm mentoring individuals who have felt broken, burnt out, bored of church. My goal is to help bring healing, rest, and purpose back into your spiritual journey. And I'm calling this week's session, Jesus Kept the Scars, Why Healing Doesn't Erase Your Story. Most of us were taught directly or indirectly that healing should be obvious. If God really worked, you wouldn't still feel this way. Well, if faith is strong, the pain should be gone. Well, if resurrection is real, Friday shouldn't still matter, right? But, Easter tells a quieter, truer story. When Jesus rises from the grave, he does not erase the cross from his body. The resurrection of Christ still bears nails right marked in his hands, a wound in his side. He does not hide them. He does not explain them away. He shows them, not as proof of failure, but actually as proof of love. Now, this matters deeply for anyone who has been wounded, burned out, or quietly disappointed, especially in church spaces that reward polish more than honesty. Because if Jesus kept his scars, then healing is not about pretending nothing happened. Healing is about allowing God to redeem what did. We often want Easter to hurry us past pain, but Jesus doesn't skip the process. There is Friday, real suffering, real loss. There is Saturday, silence, confusion, and waiting. And only then there is Sunday. Even in resurrection, Jesus moves slowly. He walks with confused disciples. He listens to their disappointment. He invites doubters to come closer. He cooks breakfast before giving direction. This is not the behavior of a Savior who demands instant transformation. This is the posture of a God who values people more than appearances. At Unquittable, we believe rest is obedience, not weakness. Healing requires margin, Trust grows in safety. And resurrection unfolds best when people are not rushed into pretending they're okay. We read in John 20 that he showed them his hands and his side. Scars are not signs that healing failed. They are signs that healing happened. The scars say the wound was real, pain matters, and it did not have the final word. Jesus' scars become the very place where faith is restored. Thomas does not believe because the tomb is empty. He believes when he's invited to touch the wounds. The stars become the bridge between doubt and trust. Your scars can become the bridge for others too. This is why encouraged speaking is an unquittable action. When people are invited, not forced, to tell the truth of their story, the shame loses its grip. Silence no longer defines the space, and trust begins to grow. You don't have to share everything, but you don't have to hide everything either. One of the most overlooked resurrection moments is how much Jesus listens. He listens to the grief. He listens to fear. He listens to disappointment. He doesn't interrupt pain with platitudes. That's why actively listen matters so deeply. Brokenness grows when people feel unseen or unheard. Healing begins when someone slows down enough to say, I'm here. Take your time. Jesus listens first, then speaks peace. If church is going to look like Jesus, it must become a place where people don't have to clean up their stories to belong. If you're still healing, you're not failing. If you're still grieving, you're not weak. If your faith feels scarred instead of shiny, well, you're actually closer to resurrection than you think. Jesus did not come back flawless. He came back faithful, and he invites us to do the same. Your pace matters. Your limits matter. Your story matters. When you take a look at Romans 6, you actually read, "We were buried with him so that we too may live a new life." And this is why Unquittable also calls us to give rest and monitor workload, because burnout does not produce resurrection life. Health does. Sabbath does. Safety does. The world does not need more people pretending they're fine. It needs people. It needs people who know how to sit with pain, listen deeply, and hope honestly. It needs communities where scars are not hidden, but held with maybe care. It needs resurrection people who understand the healing and memory can coexist. Jesus kept his scars, so you don't have to erase your story to follow him. As you move into worship, discussion, or reflection, consider this. What scar have you tried to hide that God may want to redeem? And where might listening be more healing than fixing? And who might feel safer because you chose honesty over polish? Your scars don't disqualify you. They tell the truth of resurrection. And that truth is still changing lives. If you haven't already, take some time to listen to this week's music and the 5-day devotional. These resources are free. Thanks to our Unquittable supporters, they actually receive access to all workshops and additional materials included in their membership, as well as behind the scenes updates. I look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to start a new series addressing some of the biggest questions I receive from people after they leave church.